Welcome back to the Kiwi Wedding Podcast. My name is Lydia. I'm an Auckland wedding photographer at Lydia Rachel Photography and your host. Today's episode is another great one. I'm joined by bride Caitlin, who shares all the details from her stunning Marquee wedding at La Maison in Auckland. Caitlin and her husband Danny were together for 11 years before getting engaged, and then they were engaged for about 2.5 years. So this episode is packed with thoughtful advice from someone who really took her time planning a wedding that felt completely true to them. We chat about finding a new venue after their original one fell through, creating an incredible guest experience, planning a multi-day wedding celebration, managing the budget, and all the little details that made their day so memorable. There are lots of practical takeaways in this conversation, from guest list decisions and timeline planning to service, music, and making your wedding feel uniquely yours. Before we jump in, a quick reminder that if you're planning a wedding and love the podcast, make sure you're signed up to my free love letter newsletter. Every fortnight, I share wedding planning tips, trends I'm seeing in the industry, advice from real couples, and behind-the-scenes insights that don't always make it onto the podcast. You can sign up via the link in the show notes. All right, let's get into it. Enjoy episode 147 with Caitlin. Hi, Caitlin. Thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today. Excited to hear all about your story and your wedding.
Thanks so much for having me. It's so nice to be on here, and it's definitely a little bit of a full circle moment. I definitely listened to your podcast in the lead up to my own wedding, and there was definitely a few nuggets I took away. So it's cool to be here and reliving our day.
So good. I always love to hear that when being able to help other brides, and then you'll be passing on your wisdom as well, I'm sure. So yeah, you know the format, how we start. If you could just go back to a bit of the story of how you guys met and your life together.
So Danny and I have been together now we've been married just over a year, so it's 14.5 years now. So we got together back at university, and it was very much sort of a across the lecture theatre crush, which, we never left each other's side after that. Yeah, it took 11 years to propose. So I did my time, but it was so worth it. But yeah, we're both physiotherapists, and we're from Auckland. We have our little place over here, got our cat and our dog. And just love traveling and hanging out.
Oh, I love that. So good. Love it when a high school or uni love story works out. And so obviously we're together for quite a while. Can you tell us a bit about the proposal story and how that all happened?
Yeah, totally. I always said to him, I was like, you've got 10 years, and if after 10 years that's it. And he totally called me bluff, because he actually did it on our 11-year anniversary, which, for anybody who knows Danny, he is not Mr. Cliche. So I was caught completely off guard, because I just never thought he would do that. And it had just been my 30th birthday as well, like 2 days beforehand. So it was just not on the radar. And it was a Saturday, and we had my parents over, and we were getting ready for my 30th birthday party, which we were having the following weekend. So we were doing like house chores. We were water blasting and cleaning windows and all that stuff. He was actually going to ask my dad he did ask my dad that day if he could marry me. And it's the funniest story. He was like, they had to do a dump run, and he was like, oh, Grant, I'll come with you to the dump. And then my dad's like, hey, look, no, I've got to go. And then he's like, oh, okay, well, why don't you go to the dump, and then I'll meet you at a pub down the road, because I just need to talk to you. And then my dad's like, no, I've got to get the truck back. I can't do that. And they ended up just taking him behind the shed and asking him. He was like, hey, Grant, is it okay if I ask Caitlin to marry me? So it was hilarious, like a rainy day. It was funny. So that was like the Saturday afternoon. And then I was like inside pottering around, and he was like, right, you need to get in the shower. We're going into town. And I was like, oh, okay. He was like, yeah, I've got a hotel for our anniversary. we never really do much on it. So like, why not? And so I was like in the shower thinking, oh, I wonder if this is it. And then I jump out the shower and he was like, by the way, my friend from up north is down. So I thought we might catch up with him. And I was like, oh, okay, it's not going to happen. And then anyway, we went into town. We booked a hotel that was sort of near like where we got together the first night in town, and was like views of the Sky Tower. And just in the hotel room, he got down on one knee and asked me to marry him. And he'd booked a beautiful dinner at Seoul. And the ironic thing is, we actually still went and saw his friend who was in town.
I was like, was he just trying to throw you off?
It wasn't even a bluff. It was true.
Oh.
So yeah, we so had a beautiful dinner and then told all our friends and family. Actually, no, we told my immediate family the next day, and then we surprised everyone. I just wore my ring at my 30th birthday party and surprised like all of our friends and stuff. So it was so cool. And I was very caught off guard.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, definitely like a casual man, keep things on the down low, but keep you guessing as well. So
Tell me about it.
As we said, been together a while. Had you been one of those girls that kind of dreamed about your wedding? Did you have a bit of a vision in mind for that, what that would look like? What were those kind of first steps, like choosing a location, all of that?
Yeah, I was definitely that girl. I had always dreamed about my wedding day, and I knew that I wanted like a wedding, a biggish wedding. Whereas Danny, on the other hand, he didn't necessarily felt like he wanted to get married, but not necessarily have the big wedding. I never really had a vision per se to think of like, this is what I want it to look like. But as we sat down and started thinking about what we wanted, we had been really lucky to have been to lots of different friends and families' weddings before ours. And so we did know that we wanted a marquee wedding. So that sort of was like, cool, that's what we want. So now we need to find our venue that we can put a marquee on. We love Europe. We've done lots of travel in Europe. We lived over in London. So we were like, how do we get Europe in New Zealand? And so that was kind of where we started. And it's kind of like crazy, actually. We had a different venue booked in for 12 months. So we had our date, our venue, and a few key vendors locked in, which it actually ended up falling through for reasons that were out of our control. So it was a little bit stressful, sort of 12-ish months out from our actual wedding day, having to move, which is where we found La Maison. At the time, they hadn't really had many big weddings. I think they had some smaller weddings. And I just spoke to Megan and said, hey, look, your home is beautiful. And, this is our situation. We've got some really key vendors that are already locked in. We've got a date, but no venue all of a sudden. And so she really kindly agreed for us to come and have a look and just for me to tell her a little bit more about the wedding. And they agreed to let us have a slightly bigger wedding there than what they had previously. And then, and now looking back, man, that wedding venue was our dream venue. And it's crazy to think, whilst it was quite stressful in that middle phase, the other venue was not our venue. And it's funny how things happen and how you get to that point, because it was everything and more. And we loved it.
Oh, so good. Yeah, definitely a bit of a stressful pivot to have to change.
Totally.
I mean, the most key thing about your day where it's going to be like lucky you had a bit of time, but then I don't know, you still need to get those things locked in like quite far in advance. So yeah, but such a stunning venue. So glad it all worked out. And yeah, your photos look beautiful from the day, which we'll get into. But you kind of mentioned a few things there, but what were the like top priorities for you, the most important elements of the day?
So Danny and I sat down and sort of nutted out collectively I was like, I want a videographer. That was like my one thing straight out the bat. And I knew that before we were even engaged that I wanted flat rock. So that was like an easy one. We're like, cool, done. And then Danny was like, well, I don't want a curfew. It's like, wow, that's quite hard. So those were like our two definites when we came in. But then when we actually sat down and nutted it out, we were able to identify some of those really important things. Food, plenty of booze, but then with that service. was really important to us. So we had multiple conversations with our caterer who supplied the bar staff about, we want to have a cocktail hour which has cocktails, but I don't want people waiting in a line. I don't want any lines at the bar. I don't want, after dinner, I don't want plates left on the table. Once everyone's finished eating, I really want them to be like taken away. So I was quite particular about service, but with the food and drink. So that was really important for us. Music, we wanted just a great party. I feel like that's what most of us want at the end of the day as well. It's the celebration. And so we had that same, do we go band, do we go DJ? We decided to go with a DJ, and the reason being we were quite intentional about the type of music we wanted at different parts of the day. We got our DJ for 12 hours. He did literally from me walking down the aisle to the 1 a.m. last song. So it was a big shift. And, we wanted kind of like electronic housey music at one point, and then we wanted your bangers, sing-alongs at dinner, and then we had, our more modern, kind of more upbeat stuff for our reception. So a DJ was going to enable us to be able to do that. So that was really important. And we worked quite a lot with him to kind of get that balance right for the different parts. Another real key thing was like spending time with our guests and like timeline planning. So really being quite, I'm definitely a bit of a type A bride, I would say. And so things like when it came to family photos after the ceremony, we had 20 minutes, but I even went as far as like messaging everyone who was going to be in a photo to be like, you are going to be in photo 1 and 5.
Love that. As a photographer, love that. Yeah.
Yeah. And I had my 2 bridesmaids with the lists who were like going and getting everyone, so that Danny and I didn't have to just stand there for ages while everyone else has fun, and then we stand there like having these photos. So we had seen that in the past, and we were like, how can we try and make that work better for us? We had 30 minutes, short, sharp bridal party photos. We knew what we wanted. Videographer, photographer knew, so that we could get back to the cocktail party and spend that time. So really intentional about the timeline planning and spending time with our guests. And then lastly, we were like, how do we make this just uniquely us and not be just another wedding that everyone comes to? Like, how do we make it super fun but be unique to us? And I'm sure we'll get into like some of those details a bit later with how the day actually ran. But yeah, so those were our it's kind of a lot actually when you think about it.
So
but
good. Yeah.
But that's when we sat down, we were like, this is what we want to do and this is what we're going to do. And hey, we were engaged for 2.5 years when we actually, by the time we got married, so we had time to be able to nail those things that were important.
Yeah, I love that. So many good things in there. I could comment on them all, but just pulling out a few, like thinking about that service. I think that people forget that, or are not so intentional with that sometimes, and it makes such a difference, like leaving plates on the table or lines at the bar, stuff like that. You don't think about that happening on your day, but I've seen it happen a lot. It slows things down, or I don't know, you see like people clearing plates during speeches, and that's quite annoying. Like almost all those things you mentioned were just like the feeling of the day and just being really intentional with it. I love that, thinking about the music throughout the whole day, not just like the dance floor, the feelings you wanted to have. So so much good stuff in there.
I think as well though, you want it, like when you're planned like that, it then feels effortless when you're there.
Exactly.
Because like, and you can't think about everything, but you can think about a lot. We had a coordinator, so we were able to run things past her as well, things we hadn't thought about. Or I honestly went down to the point where I was like, I want bubbles and beers on platters as soon as we finish the ceremony, but you cannot pop the bottles of bubbles at the bar, which was right next to our ceremony location. So it's like, you've got to pre-pop all the bottles. I went to that level. So
no, I love that. I think I say it to so many people about just like people wanting, well, especially brides, just wanting to be like a really chilled bride and be really relaxed on the day. And I'm like, that's amazing, but be like so organized and detailed in advance, and
Yeah,
then you will actually like relax
it
and
pays
enjoy the day.
dividends totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you talk to us a bit about your dress journey, shopping, finding it, getting it made? Yeah, how did that all go for you?
Honestly, it was so fun, but I probably didn't realize about myself how indecisive I can be. Very type A, very organized, but also can be a little bit indecisive, so it seems, when it comes to wedding dresses. I honestly nearly said yes to 2 dresses before my dress.
Mm.
I'd always thought I'd be in an A-line dress, but then when I started trying on dresses, I actually really loved more fitted ones, which really surprised me. And I nearly at 2 different stores before I actually went to Hera and tried on the dress that I ended up choosing. I Yeah, it nearly happened. So I think it goes to show like you can love multiple dresses. But I did have a bit of a feeling like when I put my dress on, I was like, oh wow, this actually, it's me. And I feel just like a really elevated version of myself. It was like a reasonably classic dress with like a little bit of a twist. It was like a glazed Mikado rather than just a regular Mikado, which is little hints of different, which I felt like was me. But yeah, so it was an interesting journey. Probably one thing about my dress is I had that kind of that thought that I only get to wear this dress once. I want to be in it all day. It needs to have the night of her life, and I'm not going to get changed. I was definitely on that side of it. And so I didn't have a second dress. And looking back, I really wish I, at the very least, threw my hen's dress in and had it as an option, because it got to like, we took our wedding till 1 a.m. So it got to like 11. So I probably still would have been in my main dress, for the first dance and the start of the party and everything. But it got to like 11, and just being a big dress with a big train, which we did bustle up, it was annoying me. It was just a lot of fabric. And I just wish I had just thrown my other dress in to at least have the option. I didn't have the option. So that's something that I have told friends who have gotten married, even though you want to be in it all day, just throw it in, because yeah, that would be my only thing, is in hindsight, which is great, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Such good advice. And I think I totally understand that camp of like, it's a big investment, a wedding dress, and it's like you do all that looking, you find the one and want to stay in it the whole day. And it's a lot more popular to get like a mini or something these days. But yeah, even just like getting something from a chain store or like online or whatever that you can
Hire
throw
one.
on.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the hire places
exactly.
have beautiful dresses, and that you could literally like, I don't think I'm gonna wear it, but for $100, I've got it as an option. So yeah, that would be my only thought there.
Yeah, good tip. And did you guys have a bridal party as well? And how did you go with choosing them? Did you find that quite easy?
Yeah, we did have a bridal party. I had 3 girlfriends who were my bridesmaids, and then Danny had 5 groomsmen. I had known from the day we got engaged. I knew who I wanted to have as my bridesmaids. I had my best friend from London. I had a childhood best friend, and then she's my best friend now, but she's actually someone who I met in my late 20s, and it was, one of those people that you meet later in life and you click and you think, how did I ever live without you? And,
Mhm.
our cross paths for whatever reason. So she's a newer friend, but an extremely dear one. So I had 3. Danny had 5 because he's got 2 brothers. I've got some very dear sister-in-laws, but I don't have any, sisters. So Danny had 3 friends and his 2 brothers, and that's how he came to his. For anyone who thinks that having mismatch, bridal party is an issue, it is so not an issue, or we didn't believe it was an issue. Aesthetically, it was not a problem. Like, our photos are incredible. That's not a reason not to have who you want. So yeah, uneven but relatively easy. Yeah, at the end of the day, yeah.
Yeah, so good. Yeah, another great tip there. I think a lot of people get hung up on having the even, and doesn't matter for photos at all. And I think don't like count someone out who's really special to you just because of numbers.
Totally, totally. Just have who you want, and you're only going to do this once. Just have your people around
Exactly.
you. Your bridal party are incredible. Like, they're your hype people. You want them. So yeah, think about who makes you feel good, who's really supportive. Yeah, just stick to your gut and go with it. It doesn't matter if it's different.
And how many guests did you end up having, and how did you find that whole process narrowing it down? It can be a tricky one. Did you find that?
Honestly, Lydia, the guest list was the hardest part of the whole wedding planning process, and we revised our list multiple times. Again, slightly longer lead into the wedding, so we did revise it a few times.
A lot can change in a few years as well, just like with relationships. Yeah.
Yeah. And so we ended up having 77 was our final number at the end of the day. We not lost, but 3 people for different, we would have had 80, but right before a couple of people weren't able to come for personal reasons. So we had 77. Our guest list probably would have been double that. There were some people that like a group of people that we didn't invite for our own reasons. And, at the time when we had to sort of lock in on our guest list, we made the best decision at that time. And, looking back again with the beauty of hindsight, we probably would have invited a few more people. But, again, I think people do understand you don't have a finite number. La Maison is not a finite number wedding. I want to say it's capped at either, I think it might be 100 is the cap for them at the moment. And obviously budget as well. The more people, the bigger the budget. And I think people do understand that. But so it probably was a little bit smaller, but there was reasons. It was so hard. And everyone I've spoken to who have planned weddings before, I know it's a really challenging space. The other thing was kids. My brother had a 6-week-old. Danny's brother had a 2-week-old. My best friend had a 2-week-old. And we made the really hard decision that we said no babies or children. If we had have let there be babies, we probably would have had 9. We counted. Wow. 9 under 1, and we were like, we just don't want prams and babies. And so that was a little bit hard as well, and we did have to just stick to our guns. And people, they made it work, but it's a hard one. We don't have kids ourselves, so that kind of informs it as well. And I think people, when they do have kids, they have a completely different view on that as well. But the guest list is hard.
Such a process, but totally makes sense. All those decisions, as hard as it is, and it does affect the vibe of your day, the numbers, kids or not, and then obviously the bottom line, which you hope people understand. And it really is just like a snapshot of your life at that time. Like if you got married now or in like 2 years or 5 years ago, I'm sure it would have looked completely different, but you just have to accept that and not be looking back on it and any regrets or anything. But it's such a tricky process for sure.
It's really hard. And know that it's okay to keep revising your list.
You feel a bit savage doing it, but you have to. Can we, go into the big day, maybe a little bit of the lead up to it, and how everything went, any highlights, favorite moments?
So we took 2 weeks off over the wedding, week off before and a week off after. And because La Maison is a dry hire and we did try and do as much of it ourselves, the Friday beforehand, there was definitely a little bit of setup. We had the bridal party come in and help us set up and did our rehearsal and stuff like that. Some of our best friends had their Indian, and they had got married a year beforehand. So with Indian weddings, it's a multi-day celebration, and we had the best time. So we were like, we want to do a multi-day celebration. So we did some welcome drinks for our immediate family, bridal party and partners on the Friday night as well. And then so the wedding day, was a beautiful day. Nothing per se went wrong, and if it did, I didn't know about it. So the day itself was great. The morning, again, I had a very clear timeline of not wanting to feel rushed. I was in my dress really early. I probably had an hour where we got our photos done, and then we were able to, I did a first look with my dad and my brothers, and then we were able to like pop a bottle of bubbles and have half an hour just getting excited. Probably my only tiff is my brother was driving one of the cars, and there's a long way and a short way to go from where I was staying, and he took the long way, which made me a bit late. So in the car, I was getting a little bit antsy. I was only like 10 minutes late, but I was only going to be 5 minutes late. So I didn't love that, but it was fine. I had dreamed of sort of walking down the aisle with my dad, and that was a super, super special moment. My aisle music, I said nothing really went wrong, but they're not big things. My aisle music was ecstatic, actually. They think the DJ just turned it up a little bit loud. And so when the bridesmaids were walking down beforehand, it was a little bit static, but actually they managed to sort it out. And then when Dad and I came down, it was perfect and it was fine. So yeah, that was funny to look back on. But we had our dog as our ring bearer, which no one knew about. So that was super special. And then, you know what? One of my favorite parts from the day was our like 30-minute short, sharp bridal party photos. We had the videographer had like a speaker, and Danny had another playlist that we had with like all of our like hype songs, and we had like, you know, champagne showers, and it was just the most fun 30-minute like hype session before we like went back to our cocktail hour, which when we had, you know, spritzers and oysters and stuff. So that was a real highlight, actually. When we did so we had our cocktail hour, everyone went into the Marquee, and then we did like our entrance into the Marquee, and Danny and I had this idea of doing a champagne tap. I don't know if you've seen it at like the tennis and stuff. You get those big bottles of like, they're called like Jeroboams, and we had never done one before. We had literally seen it on TikTok at the tennis, and we were so nervous about it not working because we didn't practice it. It's a very expensive bottle of wine, couldn't practice it beforehand. And so anyway, we went out, he took the cork off, and I like tapped it with a knife, and it like blew, and everyone just like roared. And there's this hilarious photo, I can send it to you, of like Danny like underneath the shower, like honestly like 3/4 of the bottle he like wore. So that was like and again, we didn't tell anyone, we just did it. So there was all these little surprises throughout the day.
Love that.
And then we got into the Marquee, and everyone had shots at their table. So before we even sat down, we like walked in, the music was still going. We hadn't even sat down. We like picked up our shots, and we like kind of cheersed everyone, and everyone like did a shot before we even did any housekeeping or anything. So that was cool. And then we made up this game, actually, about it's a lot of drinking going on. It's we're not actually like that. Yeah, exactly. We made this game where we just made it up. We're like, how can we make this us and unique? And we had very intentionally picked people, our friends and family, who we knew would do okay, and we put stickers on the bottom of their plates with like little messages to say like, you've got this, Holly, see you at the bottom, or whatever. And so the MC was like, hey everybody, before we kick into things, I want you to turn over your plate and to see if you've got anything under there. So, you know, most people didn't, but there was a few people who had the sticker that was like, and they're like, okay, everyone stand up if you've got a sticker under your plate. So then, you know, groups of different people stood up from each table, and then we brought round like a drink each, which they had to like shotgun. And it was like a race, and it was like, again, the whole Marquee was like cheering, and it was just such a, not that you needed an icebreaker, but it just kind of like settled in, set the tone. Everyone was laughing and happy, and yeah, and then we kind of got into speeches and the formalities. What are my favorite parts? Yeah, I mean, I did a first dance with Dad, which was super special, something I'd, you know, always thought I would do, and we did that before our first dance. So then Dad kind of handed me back over to Danny after our first dance, which was really special. And then we just partied the night away, like literally partied the night away. We bought Macca's cheeseburgers out later on, which Danny and I handed out on trays and went around, and it was just the best day. And then the next day we did a pool party day after thing. So maybe like half the amount of people came back. Being a Saturday wedding, you know, we had people travel from out of town and stuff, so there was people who couldn't come. But yeah, it was a gorgeous sunny day, and then the drinks were flowing. We had a caterer come back again and did, you know, like a grazing table and stuff. And yeah, we just rode the high. It was the best day. So that's another recommendation. If you can do a multi-day celebration, I highly recommend it, because one day is just not enough. And particularly the day after, you are on this high that
Yeah.
you just never want to come off it. So yeah, one day is not enough.
Oh, so good. Love that. So many cool moments in there. And yeah, I love those things you did that just like made it you, as you say,
Yeah,
or just, yeah, little different details, and that you really thought about it, not just like got it off Pinterest necessarily. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but yeah, and especially the multi-day thing. I think, yeah, there's a lot of people say that for good reason, and it does fly by so fast. You get a bit more quality time with especially your closest people or people
totally.
that have traveled. Yeah. What did you find like the hardest part about wedding planning? Or yeah, do you look back and regret or would do anything a little bit differently?
The wedding, I actually really enjoyed, for most part, I enjoyed the wedding planning process. And I think as well that may come down to having had quite a long lead in.
Mm.
Nothing was too overwhelming insofar as each month I was just able to tick off something. In saying that, there was times, you know, at that 12-month mark where the venue flipped and we had to find something else. And there was definitely stressful periods. The guest list stressed us out quite a lot. And I'm not gonna lie, I had those moments where I was like, maybe we should just elope. You know, I get that, and I get why people do it, because it can be quite stressful. But all in all, it was I enjoyed the wedding planning process because I had time. With time, you do maybe second guess yourself a little bit with decisions that you make early on. Things change, trends change, your opinion just changes as you know, evolve and grow. And so I did change my mind a few things with like decor and details and colors and stuff. But I honestly, I wouldn't. I feel like lots of people say this. It was our day. It was very us. The weather played part. I was so nervous about the weather, even though we had a very like good plan B so that it wouldn't become too stressful. Of course, you always want to go with plan A. So, you know, but the weather was great. I don't think there's anything I would do differently other than maybe if I got married right now, the guest list may be slightly different. It'd probably be just a bit bigger, to be honest. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that makes so much sense. It's interesting to hear from someone with the like relatively long engagement as well. And I think, yeah, a lot of people will relate to that kind of doubting your decisions a little bit, but then also great that it was like relatively smooth process with just being like organized and spreading out that planning a bit more.
And I think once you make the decision, just stick to it. Don't keep trying to revisit it, like with your dress as well. I chose my dress, and then, you know, you put it in your hidden photos in your phone, and then you go back and keep looking at it, and then you're like, oh, do I love it as much? You know, just put it away. Yes, you do love it. Photos when you're not all done up, and, you know, like it's a feeling that you have, you can't replicate that in photos. And you know, that's the same with your decisions. You just make them, stick to them, because yeah, you'll keep revising otherwise.
Yeah, exactly. Such good advice. And yeah, did you guys have a set wedding budget, if you're happy to talk about what that was, or just how you found that whole side of things?
Yeah. So we definitely did have a budget, and it was quite a, like I said, we'd been to quite a few weddings before, so we had an idea of like what things cost. What does a dress cost? What does a marquee cost? What do flowers cost? But I think you've just got to be really realistic at the time of setting your budget. So I do think we were able to set a realistic budget. Our wedding was, you know, on the like above average in terms of price, I would say, but we were mostly able to stick to it. So for example, like flowers, we had $4,000 budget. You know, that wasn't going to get me wreaths and massive installations. And so we worked with our florist to say, look, this is our budget. These are the things I want. How can we make this work? It is so easy just to keep going and go over. But I would say just don't. Just think about what's important, what you're happy to spend on those things when you're setting it, and just stick to it. But if you say, I'm going to do $1,000 on flowers and I want XYZ, of course you're going to blow it, you know. So I think it comes back to setting a realistic budget, which we did. So we were able to stick mostly to it, but at the end there is ad hoc stuff that comes up. So I would say we probably went a couple of $1,000s over. So yeah, so maybe just having a bit of a buffer. If you set it right, stick to it, but then just have a little buffer at the end for things that crop up. And then, hey, if it doesn't crop up, that's great. It's in your pocket. But yeah, things like, you know, groceries for the bridal party who are at the house for 3 days, thinking about their breakfast. What are they going to have on the wedding morning? What are they going to have on the morning after the wedding? What if they get hungry? What snacks do they need? Water bottles, you know, all that stuff. So you don't think about that when you set the budget 24 months ago. Yeah, I would just say just stick to it. Be realistic, stick to it, but then have a little buffer too.
Yeah, such great advice. I feel like so many people say that, like, even if they did keep relatively on track, then there was like all these last minute things. So if you can intentionally put that aside or like plan for it in advance a bit, that there's going to be unexpected things, then yeah, so helpful. And yeah, I guess obviously you have like a bit more time with like a longer engagement and you're continually working and earning, so can kind of like spread that out over that time and not be like paying for everything at once also.
Yeah, totally. And you know, like being realistic, like we knew we were going to have a big wedding. We knew it was going to cost a lot of money. And so I would have loved to have had a wedding in 12 months. I was so excited. I felt like I had waited forever to get married, and, you know, but in the grand scheme of things, 2.5 years, it went so fast. And because we just chipped away at it, it wasn't too stressful. We were able to get excited. We were able to save. Just be patient. Like, it's so exciting and you do want to get married so fast, but it goes fast. You know, it's crazy to think it's been over 12 months since we even had our wedding day. Like, time really does go fast. And, you know, you're only a fiance once as well. You may as well lean into that and just enjoy being a fiance for a little bit longer, because that's cool as well.
Love that. Yeah, I think if you can kind of like enjoy that season and yeah, focusing on, I don't know, romanticizing it a little bit maybe, and not just like, oh, got to get through it, I'm so stressed. Like, yeah, sitting in it, enjoying it for a bit. I love that advice. Did you guys go on honeymoon straight away? You mentioned taking an extra week off. So, yeah, did you go away straight away, or what did planning that look like?
We did a mini moon to begin with. So we just got like a canopy camping place just north of Auckland and went away and just had a few nights up there straight after the wedding. And I highly recommend that. Like I say before, you are on the high, life is so good. And then the thought of, you know, going back to work was, you know, I would not recommend that. So we did a mini moon, which was awesome. And then we went to Europe in the middle of the year. So we got married in March and then went to Europe at the end of July. And then, yeah, so I planned Europe in those months after the wedding. So I honestly don't feel like I really had that much capacity to plan, you know, a dry hire wedding, which we did most of ourselves, to then plan like a big honeymoon after. And to be honest, it was kind of nice having that lead in, something else to look forward to as well after the wedding, rather than going straight away. So it worked really well for us having that sort of 4-ish month gap.
Did you have any sort of like helpful resources in the lead up to the wedding with finding inspiration, advice, and then like helping you find vendors, stuff like that?
One of your girls that you had on, and I'm sorry, I can't remember her name, but she did a spreadsheet, like an Excel spreadsheet, budgeting spreadsheet. So when I listened to that, I like literally downloaded it, and that was my budget spreadsheet, which was so great. I can probably go find the name of it, and you could chuck it back
I
in
know
your
I'm
store.
going to be terrible and like trying to remember as well. I think there was one Christchurch wedding, but she like also worked in finance or had like an
Yeah, yeah,
amazing
yeah,
spreadsheet. It might have been that one. I'll
yeah.
link it in the show notes. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm sure I can find it, like find what episode it was. So like that was so handy and I loved it. Like plugged everything in, deposit paid, when the rest of it was due, what bonds were due back. So so I loved that. So thank you, Lydia, and your other guest. A lot of my inspiration and stuff probably came Instagram was massive. So going onto vendors and then going into the photos that they had been tagged in and like looking at all the different weddings and whatnot. So and then you fall into a little bit of a hole. Another vendor leads to another vendor. So that was mostly my way of doing like finding my vendors was through Instagram really. Yeah, a little bit of Pinterest. Yeah, I'm just mindful that Pinterest isn't always, you can draw inspiration, but it's
Yeah.
yeah.
It's great. It's like, yeah, but it can be overwhelming content wise, or just like, yeah, you're seeing these a lot of them multi six figure overseas weddings. So yeah, looking at like the New Zealand vendors that you're actually maybe going to hire is a bit more like, oh, what have people done here?
Totally. Yeah.
Not that we can't achieve that, but you know, your budget might not be
No.
500 grand. Like, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, love it all the same. So good. Yeah, I feel like you've given so much amazing advice already. Is there anything else you would say to a couple planning their wedding at the moment?
Yeah, like I said, I think I've touched on a lot of it, but just like enjoy this time, be patient, think about the wedding you want, be realistic with your budget setting, and think about how long it's going to take for you to achieve that. Don't go into debt, don't go borrow money. If you really want to get married sooner, and you might not be able to have the huge wedding, so just, I think, be really realistic, think about what's important to you and stick to it. Get that second dress or throw in your hen's dress. That's a big one. Yeah, they're probably the main ones. Yeah, be as organized as you can so it feels as effortless as possible, because the more organized you are beforehand, just the more smoothly the day is going to run. If you're having an outdoor marquee wedding, in New Zealand, you've got to have plan B for wet weather.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you can't change the weather. There's no point getting too stressed about it. But if you've got a really great plan B, outdoor dance floors, they get wet. We had an outdoor dance floor, which we didn't realize. So that was part of the vision. We went outdoor, disco ball, festoon lights, which was outside of the marquee. Yeah, and they condensate and they get wet. So we had like the DJ and stuff like wiping the floor. It didn't rain. So yeah, I guess be mindful of that. Outdoor dance floors get wet.
Nice. Oh, so much good advice in there. I think, yeah, that being organized to be effortless is such a good, yeah, key bit of advice. And yeah, you've given so much. So super helpful. What is married life like now? And yeah, do you feel like you got any of those post-wedding blues right after the wedding?
Married life is the best. Nothing's changed, but like everything's changed insofar as like it's this like feeling of just, having a husband and being a wife, and nothing's changed, but everything's changed. Our day-to-day running of our life is no different. But as for the post-wedding blues, no, I didn't get the post-wedding blues. And I honestly put that down to my bridesmaid and best friend. She got married 4 weeks to the day after Danny and I. So we went straight into not planning. We went straight into her hen's do and then straight into her wedding. So like 2 weeks and 2 weeks. So we just, they were in our wedding party, we were in theirs. So we just like had this like high for 8 weeks over that period. No, it saved me from the wedding blues. I didn't get it. I was just on a high for weeks after, and then I moved into planning the honeymoon. So yeah, I recommend that. Have another wedding booked in.
Yeah, so
Someone
good.
else's.
Be in your engaged era with your best friend, so good.
Highly recommend it.
Yeah, I love that. And then, yeah, having that honeymoon to plan and look forward to as well. I think definitely would have helped. Little winter escape too. Yeah. Amazing. It's been so lovely to chat to you today. So much good advice. I think, yeah, people get a lot out of this episode. Is there anything else we missed or you want to add as we wrap up?
I don't think so. I mean, Megan and Ben, at La Maison, they're incredible. And there's been some beautiful weddings that have been there since ours. And so it's pretty cool to see what other people have done with their floor plans and stuff. So yeah, it's an incredible place. So, I highly recommend it if that's your style of wedding. And yeah, just to all those planning their weddings, just enjoy it and know it's just a phase in your life and it's a good one.
So good. I love that. Yeah, such a stunning spot, and we'll definitely share a few of your photos as well. Thank you so much.
No, thank you.